Good afternoon, Tanika. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Roland,
I'm
hi.
sure you'll be fine on your
Okay.
own.
Do you know if Garrick is attending today?
No, I don't. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks. I'm gonna call him now.
All right.
Hi, Tanika. Can you still hear me?
Hi, Roland.
Hi, you're a co-host. Okay.
Yeah, I noticed.
Okay. So Garrick will be coming in about 5 minutes. So if I do not see
Mm-hmm.
him, please let him in. Okay.
No
I've got a
problem.
few things I'm doing in the background, so you will not
I
hear me. I'll
figured
come.
that.
I'll
I
come
figured
back
the
in
three
about two.
minute almost.
Okay. I've
All
always said
right.
it to Gary. Garrick, between quarter past and 3:30. Sorry, between quarter past two and 2:30 for 15 minutes. I will not be able to speak because I'll be doing a radio interview. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
But
Thanks.
Gary can handle things. I'm just listening in.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Just in case you forget. Okay. Thanks. Bye. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Tanika, can you hear me again?
Mm-hmm.
Um. As soon as I'm gonna speak to Garrick off the line, but as soon as he gets in, let him know, please, that it's being live streamed. So be mindful of what you're both saying. As I'm gonna speak to him now, please. Okay.
Mm-hmm. No
Okay.
problem.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'll be starting at 2 o'clock. We just have around 7 minutes or 5 or 6 minutes, just waiting for a few more people to log on. While we're waiting, if you just tell us, please, your location and where you're calling in from in the chat. This meeting being recorded and live streamed, so just for you to be aware, if you don't want your camera on, then that is your choice. Just to let you know that it is recorded and it's live stream at the same time. We have about 4 or 5 minutes before we start. If this is your first visit to the platform, if you can tell us in the chat how you got the information, whether social media, word of mouth, etc. Just help us to know how the information is getting out, and it helps us to know where the information is not getting out.
Yeah, hi there. My name is Lancelot Webb, and yeah, I'm coming. From London. And I went to a seminar meeting. That's where I got the information from.
Yes. What part of London are you, Lancet? East, west, north, south?
South London.
South London. What part of South London?
Oh, you would say around Sutton area.
Sutton. Okay, that's great. Thank you for that. Keep checking the chat. There will be information being put in the chat that will be very helpful. So we'll be directing you to a website and questionnaire. So keep checking the chat, please. We will mention this throughout the meeting. We'll start at 2 o'clock, about 3 minutes to go. Welcome, Delroy. We'll be starting shortly. It's now 2 o'clock, so can I give you a very warm welcome to our Sunday chat? Once again, good afternoon. A warm welcome to our Sunday chat. If you're outside a different time zone, then it may be morning or afternoon or night. So welcome. Let me give a brief introduction and some basic ground rules. The Sunday chat operate twice a month, second and last Sunday of each month, 2 till 4. It is promoted on the Eventbrite platform and a number of social media platforms. And we aim to help individuals to check their eligibility to the compensation scheme, whether that would be status or compensation. We also work closely with other colleagues, and today you will hear one of our colleagues' organization, which is Liverpool Advocates for Windrush, who support individual with claim and guidance. So we'll speak a bit more about that as we go through the session. Just to tell you, I'm located in the northwest of England, part of the City region, Liverpool City region, but I actually live on the other side of the river in Cheshire. And we have colleagues from London, and we have colleagues from Liverpool on the chat today. So as a way of introducing the subject, the information we present to you is based on the Home Office guidance, and it's public information. We don't have any special information. We're using just the public information on the Windrush compensation scheme and status. And you just heard that the meeting is being recorded. So if you choose to keep your camera off, that is fine. But just be aware it's being recorded and live streamed at the same time. So the information that we use is the information that the Home Office provide. So we will make reference to the guidance, and we will make reference to any update that the Home Office has released. The purpose of the Sunday chat is really to help individual to, first of all, understand the Windrush compensation scheme and status, and also to check if they're eligible to apply to either scheme. Now, the Home Office set out what they call guidance and eligibility criteria. So we have to fulfill the eligibility criteria. So we will give you that information so that you can check your own situation. But can I also mention that the conversation that we have today doesn't have to be the last conversation, because you've got access to information and advocates after this meeting. We will give you that information. Can I also mention that we may have different view on the subject matter, and that's okay. But we want you to respect each other's view. And the basic ground rule that we set is that we should respect each other and listen to each other's point of view before we make a comment or seek to clarify any further point. That allows us to progress through the meeting in an orderly fashion. Also, you'll be given the opportunity to ask questions, whether audio or in the chat. And we will do our best to provide you with the answers. If we're not able to give you the full answer to your question, we will go away and find information and come back to you with an answer. Can we also mention that the Windrush compensation scheme is separate from immigration advice, although we have access to immigration advice. On this platform, we focus exclusively on the Windrush compensation scheme and status. And where there is an immigration query, we will give information as to how you can get that immigration query answered. So bear in mind that we don't have all the answers, and we try our best to keep up to date with the Home Office and any changes that has been made. And if you are aware of any changes that has been made in the last 3 months or so, then you can share that with us also. We have to search and find updates. The Home Office don't normally just give us the information. We have to look for it. Okay. So that's a little bit about the Sunday chat, and what we aim to achieve over the next 2 hours is to give you a better understanding of the scheme and status, and also for you to check if you're eligible for either of those schemes, which I will talk about in a moment. Let me just remind people who've just joined the call, the meeting is being recorded. So if you don't want your face to be on the recording, you can keep your camera off. Thanks for that. Also, as we go through this session, if you just put in the chat your location where you're calling in from, and let us know if how you got the information, how you received the information about the Sunday chat, whether through a friend, word of mouth, or whether through the Eventbrite platform or social media that we put out there. So let us know how you get the information. Can I suggest also that you get a pen and paper, because I think it's important to make notes so that you can reflect on your notes. We always advise a pen and paper, so that will help you. So that's a way of introduction. Let me just say quickly before my colleague go off and do a radio interview, can I ask Roland to introduce himself, please?
Hello, good afternoon. Gary, can you hear me?
I can.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, wherever in the world you are. My name is Roland Houslin. I am in West London, co-founder Justice for Windrush Generation with my colleague, Gary. I'll leave it there for now. You will hear back from me later on sometime going towards 2:45 roundabout. Thanks. Back to you, Gary. Thank you.
That's okay. Thank you very much. You go along and do the interview on the radio. Again, just getting the information out to a wider audience. Can I just ask also, my colleague Tanika is on the call. She's located in Liverpool. Tanika, can you just say your role and what you offer?
Hi, Garrick. Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. As Garrick already introduced, my name is Tanika. I am an advocate with Law, which is Liverpool Advocates for Windrush, which Garrick and I are co-founders. We offer similar services, but we offer more. So we offer people support who want to fill out their Windrush applications or schemes, or even to understand whether they're eligible or not. Windrush schemes lend themselves to immigration rules, and by virtue of our partners and people that we work with, we can provide legal advice. In addition, we offer free traumatic support and counseling, or emotional support, if you want to call it that, to anyone who identifies that they would like some help with that from qualified counselor and retired nurse. So please visit our website, which the link I've put in the chat. We also currently have a survey that we have live on our website. And we're trying to understand and collect information from Windrush claimants and people who have been affected by Windrush, how we can better help them. So we're trying to create bespoke services. Gareth, that's it for me. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much, Tanika, for that. We'll come back to the reference point as we go through our session. So again, we've mentioned the fact that we're working with other organizations, and Liverpool Advocate for Windrush is one of the organizations that we're working with to support application and individual. And Tanika's given you the website, which is liverpooladvocate.org. There's a questionnaire there that you can complete in your own time. It will help us to understand some of the barriers that individuals are facing that we may not be aware of. So thank you very much for that. Let me just now go into the Sunday chat conversation around status and compensation scheme. Many of us are aware of the scandal that materialized in 2018. Some of us knew something about that prior to 2018, but we didn't fully understand what was happening and the experiences of individuals. And as the scandal broke, we got a better understanding as to what's been happening over many years to our community and people from the Commonwealth countries. And so the government responded, and they responded to put things right, as they say. And putting things right, they devise a compensation scheme and status. We say status, that's about rectifying your status to make sure you have the right documentation and have the right to be living in the UK. And so what the government did, they produced guidance to help individual to check whether or not they are eligible for either of the scheme. Now, there are two schemes. There is this Windrush status scheme. That's to rectify your status, get your papers. We call that, documentation. And then there is the compensation scheme, which is separate, but is related. We always make this point. The first step for anyone is to check their status. That is the very first step. Check your status. Have you got the right to be here in the UK? And after you check your status, that will determine your situation, whether you're eligible, and it will also determine whether you've been impacted because you were unable to prove your status. You did not have the document to prove you had the right to be here in the UK. And there are many reasons why that may be the case, because you may have come to the UK as a child, in which case you didn't have a passport, you came with family members, etc. Or you may have, born in the UK from a parent from the Commonwealth country, etc. So the Windrush compensation scheme and status is the only way to actually confirm your citizenship and to rectify your status. So the information I'll give you now is really the guidance, the information that the Home Office produce to help people to navigate through the system and to check who's eligible for the scheme. So firstly, it's important for dates. And this is the reason why I mentioned having a piece of paper and a pen to record your own notes. So firstly, the Windrush compensation scheme provide guidance, and I'm reading directly from the Home Office, which says, the Windrush compensation scheme was launched on the 3rd of April 2019. You may be able to claim compensation if you suffer losses because you could not show that you had the right to live in the UK. The Windrush compensation scheme and the Windrush compensation scheme will remain open as long as they're needed. So at the moment, we don't have any date when the scheme will close. However, in our view, it will not be open indefinitely. There will come an end of date sometime in the near future. We don't know when. So at the moment, no end date for the scheme. The next point is this, and this is the important element. To be eligible to claim status or compensation, you have to fulfill the following. And it's based on when you actually arrive in the UK, whether yourself, your parents, or grandparents. So let me just deal with the first one. You came to the UK from a Commonwealth country before 1973. Let me repeat that. You came to the UK from a Commonwealth country before 1973. Your parents or your grandparents came to the UK from a Commonwealth country before 1973. Notice the point. Your parents or your grandparents came from a Commonwealth country before 1973. There's another word that is used, being settled. Settled in the UK. You live in the UK. This is your home. You are settled in the UK. You could leave, but you were settled by the date mentioned. Yes, whether yourself, your parents, or your grandparents would have arrived in the UK and have settled status. Tanika?
Herman asked a question in the chat, Garrick. He asked where you were reading from as you were reading.
Yes. So I'm reading the guidance from the Home Office, which is the fact sheet, and the Home Office produced that. Windrush compensation scheme fact sheet, October 2023. As I said, this is public information. It's out there in the public domain for everyone to have access to. So that's a Commonwealth country. And let's also mention the first generation of Windrush people arrived in June 1948. That's the first generation, 1948. And subsequent generation arrived throughout. Okay, that was the first generation. But bear in mind this date, yes, 1973, either yourself, your parent, or your grandparent must arrive in the UK by that date. The next point, you came from any country apart from what I mentioned, Commonwealth, any country by the 31st of December 1988. Sometime we said the 1st of January 1989, but the Home Office information used the 31st of December 1988. That's what's written in print. Yeah. So you come from any country by the 31st of December 1988. If you choose to use 1st of January 89, that's fine. Yeah. And again, this point about settled. You must be settled in the UK. Settled means you live here. You have the right to be here. Settled. Now, the next point is this. There are many people who did not, I repeat this, did not sort their papers out. And because they did not sort their papers out, and I'm referring to when Mrs. Thatcher introduced the naturalization, they had to pay, and people said, I'm not going to pay because I think I'm British. Why should I pay? Many people did not sort their papers out at that time. And their children did not know that their parents or grandparents did not sort their papers out. Yeah. And the impact of that will affect the present applicants. I'm just going to invite Tanika to say something about that point where parents and grandparents did not rectify their status, did not sort their papers out. What is the implication for their descendants? Tanika?
Sorry, Garrett, can you repeat your question to me? I just heard my name.
Yeah. So people that did not sort their papers out, let's say parents and grandparents who did not feel it was necessary to get the right papers, and the children did not know that their parents and grandparents didn't have a status. What's the implication on the children or descendants?
From a Windrush perspective, I presume.
Yes.
And just to correct something you just said, Garrett, they did have a status. They would have had a status for wherever country they came from. It just would not have been British or settled status. But again, I think it depends on the timeline you're referring to.
Okay.
What timeline are you referring to, just so that
So let's just stay with the Commonwealth countries before 1973. So let's just focus on that.
Okay, so prior to 1973, people who came, they would have, wherever they're coming from, they would have come from that country with that nationality. So for example, if they come from the Caribbean or any part of the Commonwealth, it'll be that nationality where they were born, presumably. They come to the UK. If their country had not gained independence by the time they arrived or during their stay prior to 1973, they would be considered or to have been deemed citizens of the United Kingdom and colonies. Therefore, they would have had British rights or British status, i.e., all the rights as a normal British citizen born here. But in their cases, they would not have been born in the UK. So they had the same rights as somebody born here. After their country would have gained independence, whatever year that was, which would more than likely, for a lot of Commonwealth countries prior to 1973, they would have lost their CUKC status, which is citizens of the United Kingdom and colonies. That meant their right to be in the UK as a normal British citizen who was born here, that would have been lost. And they would have reverted back to having the rights of the country that they came from. Ergo, they would have then had to apply to be in the UK or to quote unquote rectify their immigration status. I think in the 80s, after 1973, I think the Thatcher government invited people to naturalize because
Yes.
of what had happened with the 1973 legislation. So a lot of people didn't know or didn't think, well, they needed to because they recognized themselves as being British. Their children born here, they thought their children was British. To answer your question then, Garrick, they would not have been British. They would have been the nationality of the parents who they were born to. And having said that, that means a lot of people may have found it difficult to access benefits, NHS services, the normal things that you find under the heads of claiming the compensation scheme, because that should not have been the case. The legislation, according to the government, should not have affected them the way it has, hence the Windrush scandal. And a lot of people did not know this at the time because it was not widely advertised or made known that once your country of birth gained their independence from the British Empire, you reverted to being from that country and the rights from that country. So you're no longer entitled to the things that you may have been entitled to as a citizen of the United Kingdom and colonies, as CUKC. When you had a blue passport, I believe it was back then, and it says United Kingdom and colonies, that was not widely known. Hence, we have the scandal, and we're in the situation we are in today.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Tanika.
Yeah.
So many people did not realize that when your country gained independence, that status of British had gone. And a lot of people also in the 80s refused to be naturalized because they didn't want to pay the government charge fees that they were charging for naturalization. Okay, so again, just bear in mind relevant dates. Commonwealth country, either yourself, your parent, or your grandparents need to be settled in the UK by 1973. Settled. Yeah. From any other country outside of that, you need to be settled in the UK by the 31st of December, 1988. Now, if you arrive after the relevant dates, say, for example, if you arrive in 1991, 92, 93, you're outside the Windrush scheme, and you cannot use a Windrush scheme to address those issues. That will now fall into immigration, separate issue. Okay, so the Windrush scheme, compensation scheme, and status runs from the 1948 with the first generation up to 1988, or we can say the 1st of January 1989. Yeah, that's the timeline for the Windrush scheme. Anything outside of that timeline falls into immigration. Okay, so makes that's clear. relevant dates, important. 2 days to remember: 1973, Commonwealth country, or non-Commonwealth country, the rest of the world, right? 1988. Those are the relevant dates. Okay? Anything else would be immigration. Okay? So if you have a query, anything affecting you outside of those dates, it will be an immigration query. Okay? So I mentioned the first thing we should do is check our status. And the second thing we would do is to see whether or not we've been impacted by not having the relevant papers. We could not show or prove our status when we were asked to produce documentation. We did not have any. Yeah. And there are some examples we could give. Individual who was working in public sector organization, for example, NHS, and have worked there for many years, and suddenly they were asked to produce documentation to show they have the right to work in this country. And the reason why they were asked to do that 10, 15, 20 years later, it's because the government had introduced a piece of legislation that require employers to do checks. Yeah. So employers now having to do checks. And by doing checks, they ask you, can you please bring your passport or whatever it is to, to prove your status? And you did not have it. And so you lost your job after 15, 20 years. And having lost your job, you lost many other things. You lost your home because you could not pay for your rent or your mortgage. And the spin-off to that you end up being homeless, nowhere to live, no job. Yeah. That is a reality of many, many people. Yeah. Losing your job, your life totally change. And your family totally change. So we've given you relevant dates, and this is what we call the eligibility criteria. Now, what we need to think about is what has happened to you, what has impacted on your life that you could then say, you are entitled to compensation. Okay. I've just given an example of an individual losing their job, become homeless, and the spin-off to all of that. Okay. But there are many other things that we could identify that would have impacted individual because they could not prove their status. So I'm going to just go to some additional points, and I've given you dates. You'll also be eligible and can make a claim if you are, and I'm going to give you the 3 different categories. If you are a close family member of someone eligible to claim, someone would be the primary claimant. And we also have another section called deceased estate, which will be the person who were the primary claimant, but they died without making a claim. And other family member, particularly the executor of the will make a claim on behalf of the deceased person. So we have primary claimant, that's the individual that's making the claim for themselves. Then we have close family members who've been assisting and supporting the individual who lost their job, lost their home, lost their livelihood, etc. And that could be a number of years that they've supported them and helped them. And later on, we'll talk about that, very specific around close family, to give you a better sense of what close family is and who is actually, who is a close family can make a claim. And then the decease is where the person have passed and another member of the family will make the claim for the individual because the individual was eligible, but they did not put the claim in before they died. So when we talk about loss and impact, we have to think about how the individual would have been impacted by the situation. We gave an example of losing your job because the employer now were checking to see what status you have, whether you had the right to be here in the UK and to work. Many people found that they could not open a bank account. They could not go to university. Their children could not go to university. They could not claim any benefit. They were refusing NHS treatment. They could not access dental treatment. Whole range of things that has impacted on individual as a result of not having that status. And what we found when we hear these stories of individual, it's not just one person's been affected. A family of 3, 4, 5, the entire family is affected. So when we think about loss, we're not measuring loss as just as a one individual. We're measuring loss for the entire family, what has happened to that family over a period of time. And we don't know how long that family or individual would have been suffering as a result of not having that status, not able to show the evidence that I have the right to be here. And this is where our advocates can help. Because a lot of people don't understand the whole process of making an application. First of all, reading the guidance note. And for each of the section, for example, primary claimant, there are guidance note to help you to fill in that section of the claim. Over 44 pages of guidance note. We suggest to individual, please read and reread and reread and keep reading the guidance note several times before you attempt to start making an application form or start to write things down. Because it's the guidance that's going to help you to identify what areas of claim, how you've been impacted, and how you can actually put that information on the application. And that is not an easy thing to do, because many people would have been suffering anxiety, depression, stress, trauma as a result of what has happened to them and their family over a long period of time, and trying to do all of this by themselves might prove too difficult. That is why we offer support for the individual, and Tanika has mentioned, Liverpool Advocates for Windrush, we offer help with the application form, help you to understand the questions, help you to transfer what's in your head onto paper as to your experience over a long period of time. What has happened to you and your family? Don't forget, this could be 20 years ago or more. And it is also true to mention, not all of us can read the guidance, get the sense of it, and complete the application solely on our own. And there are many, many reasons why we may not be able to do that. We may have learning disabilities. We may find it difficult to understand these words and what these words mean. It could be dyslexia. Yeah, what these words mean. What is the asking of me? Okay? And that is the role of the advocate, to help you to understand your story, understand your experience, what has happened to you, and get that on the form. In our experience, what we found, that individuals who have done the application solely on their own without any help, the success rate of those applications are very low. And when there is an award being made, it is often the very minimum that's been made because of the information that has been put on the application. So that is why it's important to get the assistance and the support of the advocates to help you with the application so that you can get the maximum award for what has happened to you. We also suggest, before you start writing anything on the application, you get yourself some note paper and you start to make some notes. Having read the guidance, you start to make some notes for yourself as to what that question is asking. And when you've done that, you then show that to somebody that can help you to see, if what you put down marries up with the guidance, the question that being asked of you, have you answered that question, and have you given enough information so family members can help you with that, friends can help you with that, organization can help you with that, but we're offering that through the advocacy program. So get in touch with Liverpool Advocates for Windrush and we can help you with the application. Let's just think about the application. So you're a primary claimant and you now want to complete the application. Having read the eligibility, you say, yes, I'm eligible, so I can now move on to the next stage and do the application. And the application form, as any application, will have questions, and they would want the personal information as to your name, your date of birth, where you live, your address, basic information. But please remember, when they ask you to complete your personal information, your full name, please use the name on your birth certificate as it's written, the same way it's spelled. Yeah, as it is on your birth certificate. Now, over the years, your name could have changed. You could have adopted an African name and changed your name, right? But that's not going to be on your birth certificate. Yeah? You need to put the information as it is on your birth certificate. If you're known by any other name, then there's a space for you to put that down. Okay. And the reason why we mention spelling, if there is an error in the spelling of your name, the Home Office will conclude that is not you, and they will not process that application. So everything must be correct. As you go through the application and the questions, and in particular, the bit that is so important is about what has happened to you. Yeah. That is the area that you need to focus. What has happened to you? What has been your experience over the many years that you've been impacted? And somehow you've got to put that on paper for it to make sense. Don't forget, when the application actually arrived with the Home Office casework team, they know nothing about you. All they have is what is written on the application form. Nothing else. So their decision will be based on what is written on the application form. And if sufficient information did not describe the impact of your experience strong enough for you to be awarded XYZ in pounds, then all the caseworkers will do is just to, they don't read in between the lines. They just read what you put on paper. And they will just conclude, well, this person hasn't really been impacted in my view. Tanika?
Yeah, Gareth, forgive me. Lancelot had asked the question. Did you pick it up?
No, I didn't see it. Could you read it out, please?
What if people arrived before 1988 with no document? 1988 from a Commonwealth country.
Yes, you notice the mention was 1973 from a Commonwealth country. 1988 was from any other country. That's what
And
you got
any
to
other
do. You need to be settled in the UK by the date from any other country would be 1988. So how would you answer that question then, Tanika?
any other country would include also Commonwealth countries, but any other country doesn't limit it to only Commonwealth countries. So, for example, countries in the EU, which we've seen a lot of the EU take up of the schemes since they've been launched. So that will include any other countries.
Yes.
But Lancelot will have to explain what he means, no documentation. How did he get here? So I don't want to speculate on what he is asking or what he
Right.
meant by that.
Yeah.
I personally will need more information
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
advise accordingly.
Okay. And the point that you just mentioned, Tanika, that 1988, that will include the Commonwealth countries and any other country. Yes, That's correct. What we would suggest, Lance, because what we don't encourage is individual discussing their own personal information in the public platform, but you've got access to the Windrush advocates contact email and telephone number for any further information that you may want to raise for clarification or even to discuss your particular case offline. We would suggest that would be the best approach to do that. So let's just stick with this, the application form. We've got the form, we've started to complete the application form, and the most important aspect of that form is how you're going to demonstrate you've been impacted, yeah? And the impact is really how your compensation going to be measured, right? What impact have you had over X amount of years? And this is where, you know, you need some help. Because our advocates will be able to ask the appropriate question to, you know, to help you to think about, you know, what has happened to you and get that story and out of your head onto paper. Can we also mention, often overlook, that when people travel to and from the UK and experience difficulty at the immigration entry coming back into the UK, for example, at the airport, and they are being stopped and interviewed, questioned, maybe into a separate room for a period of 25, 30, 45 minutes or so. That time that you were stopped and questioned, if it exceeds 30 minutes, then you can record that on your application form because you've been impacted. And many people tend to ignore that because they just think it's just a normal thing. But it's not a normal thing. Why should you experience that as a British citizen traveling to and from? Okay? So we always encourage people just to think back. How many times have you experienced that, or your family have experienced being stopped, being interviewed into another room for anything over 35 minutes or so? You will be eligible to put that on your claim for compensation. Okay, and there's a number of other areas where you will need to think about what has happened to you and your family, so that you can you know, put that also on the application. You know, when we talk about losing your job and losing your house because you could not pay the mortgage and your house was repossessed and you became homeless and you could not get housing from the council or housing association because you didn't have the status to show that you have the right to be here, in which case they will not give you a house. And every time you go to access anything, you're asked to produce, you know, ID, and you haven't got it, you know. So I'm sorry, you can't. You know, you can't claim income support, you can't claim universal credit, you can't claim any benefit because you need to show you have the right to be here, and you haven't got that paper to show that. So as a result, those are some of the experiences that has happened to you. And when you're now thinking about your application, you now need to think about, you know, the last 20, 30 years or so, what has happened to you, and trying to work out how you're going to put that on the form. Just an important point. When you're actually filling out the application and thinking about, you know, compensation, how you've been impacted, don't be thinking that the Home Office will be processing your application and give you 40 years of compensation. Right? It doesn't work that way. And I'm going to now invite Tanika just to say something about the burden of proof and how we evidence things, because we have to the best of our knowledge, evidence what has happened to us. You can't just say these things without actually producing the evidence. So let me just focus now on how we might do that. Tanika, in regards to evidence and in regards to how far back we can go with our claim, can you just say something about that, please?
Thanks, Garrett. The question sounds two-pronged. So, evidence, if you're going to claim that you were prevented from accessing benefits because you came to the UK on your mother's passport, you were infant, therefore you do not have any evidence or proof of your immigration status because it was all on your mom's documentation. And you can't claim benefits when you reach a certain age, which you can or you were entitled to, but you were prevented from accessing it, then you have to apply to the Home Office for evidence. You cannot say something on your application and not back it up with proof. There are different ways that we can access and get proof. I've just mentioned that you can contact the Home Office. They will give you immigration records insofar as they have it. The Home Office has stated that their records only go back to 1985. So if you came prior to 1985 and you do not have documentation, then it may prove difficult to evidence what your immigration status was prior to then. If, for example, you wanted to go to university, again, the compensation scheme and the status rectification scheme only awards for people who had a legal right to be in the UK, but for whatever reason, they were unable to prove or evidence that. For discrimination, racism, and anything of the sort, the schemes do not concern themselves with that and they do not award for that. So I just wanted to make that point very clear. The evidential burden, in my opinion, is very high for claimants. The amount of barriers that you can face, for example, how many of us have went to the shop last week, did our weekly, monthly shopping and kept the receipt? Much as from 1970s, 60s, 50s, who still have the blue passport that they probably would have came on during that period. Or in the 80s when they first when they naturalized and got that copy of the passport, who still have that version of the passport or that colored one. Now that we've left the EU, we now gone to new color type passport. So the point is, it's very high, very hard. It's not impossible. That's something I personally believe, and I implore the Home Office to review their schemes to reduce the evidential burden on the claimants. The second part of your question, Garrick, please remind me.
Yes, so you just mentioned about the burden of proof and the evidence, but also you did make the point that the Home Office will only go back to a particular date. So don't be thinking that you can claim 40 years of compensation. You mentioned that in in your response. So what we're saying is that
Garrick, can I say something else?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Thanks. It's very important that people please listen to what I'm about to say. The Home Office only makes an award or offers an award if you've suffered significant losses as a result of your inability to show that you had a lawful right to be here or to access employment, education, as I've mentioned just now, benefits, the national health services, only if you had a significant impact. In addition to that, you must also now be able to show that you try to reduce, mitigate said effect. So what did you do to help yourself, in other words? You have to show them that you tried to help yourself, and you just didn't say, well, okay, I can't prove anything. Okay, whatever. And you did nothing about it. If we all had foresight, we would have seen that, oh, well, in 2018, the scandal was going to break. And by 2023, now 2024, we would be able to claim compensation and rectify our status retrospectively. 70 something years later, 60 something years later. No, nobody has the, well, not that I'm aware of, the gift of foresight. So, having said that, what did you do at the time to reduce the impact or the effect? Did you lead on family? Friends? Did you seek unemployment? Were you successful when you sought unemployment from Job Center, for example? You may not have records of all of that, but these are things that you can claim. And the Home Office says that they're going to go do searches to see if they can find evidence that the claims that you put on the paper. But if you can help yourself even further and say, well, here, I have something from back then, because some people do keep receipts and stuff long after. My mom is one of them. So maybe if you do, then that will help your case. But the evidential burden is really high. You can only do what you can do. But also, when you're telling a story, as Garrick said about how advocates help, you have to tell a story, your story, and it's for the reader to believe, oh, did this really happen? Is this realistic? Plausible? Or is this just this person just making everything up? Thanks, Garrick.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tanika. And let me just repeat something that Tanika just says about the significant. When we use the term significance, or you've been impacted, you have to demonstrate that. You have to show the evidence that you've been, greatly impacted, and as a result of that, because, as I said, the caseworkers are just reading what you put on paper. And if, when they read what you put on paper, is not considered to be significant loss, for example, then it may well be that what they conclude from that is either no loss or minimal. Okay? And you might be expecting, a significant payout, for example, and you're surprised that nothing's been offered, or what's been offered is a very minimum. Okay? And this is why I come back to seeking help from the advocate that can help you with the application and get from you the relevant information to make that application more convincing than you doing it yourself without thinking about it. Okay? So we know, for example, that the Home Office will make an award based on what loss you have had. And when you're thinking about your losses, there's a whole list of things that you need to be thinking about. But as I said, the advocate will help you, will ask the appropriate question. Did this happen to you? Did you lose this? They'll ask the appropriate question in order to get that information from you. Okay? So please reach out to the advocates for help. So we've just spoke about primary claimants. Roland, are you back with us now?
Yes, I am.
Good. I'm now going to move on to another section that we call a close family application. And close family application is individual who've been helping and supporting that primary claimant, because that primary claimant has suffered and lost their house, their job, etc., and they needed help, had nowhere to live, and they've been supporting this individual. So Roland will now tell us about how a close family application is defined and the process. Please, Roland.
Good afternoon, good evening, greetings wherever in the world you are joining us from. Now, Gary did go through the eligibility criteria for a primary claimant. I'm just going to run through it quickly. You came to the UK before the 1st of January 1973 from a Commonwealth country. You came to the UK before the 1st of January 1989 from any country. Please note it says any country. It does not say any country except a Commonwealth country. Or you came to the UK before the age of 18 years old. Or you were born in the UK. I must emphasize this one. You were born in the UK and your parent or grandparent came from a Commonwealth country. Does not say when you were born in the UK. You were born in the UK or your parent or grandparent came from a Commonwealth country. So if you were born in the UK and you have a Commonwealth background, so to speak, you need to be doing that extra digging, getting information, have a better understanding about the Windrush compensation scheme and see if you're eligible to apply. You're entitled to, because you would be eligible if your parent or grandparent came from a Commonwealth country, you would be eligible to apply. But there's a difference between eligibility and entitlement. Come across a number of individuals who say, I'm okay, I was born in the UK and I've got a British passport. That does not mean you would not be entitled to compensation. Please do not act based on assumption or preconceived ideas. Get the details, get the information. Okay, with that said, close family member. So which close family members are we talking about that can apply to the scheme? Are we talking about your great-grand-uncle, your great-grand-aunt, or your cousins once or seventh remove or whatever? No. It's a particular cohort we're talking about, particular close family members. Let me say this. With close family member, you do not necessarily need to have come from a Commonwealth country. You can come from anywhere in the world and be eligible to apply. It depends on the relationship between you and the primary claimant or the deceased individual. So you can apply as a close family member if you fit into one of the 5 categories that I'm going to mention. And you are a close family member to a primary claimant or a deceased individual. Now, the eligibility criteria between a deceased estate or a deceased individual and a primary claimant is absolutely no difference. Absolutely no difference between a primary claim and a deceased estate claim in terms of eligibility or entitlement, except, please note this word, except that individual that would have been eligible and entitled as a primary claimant is now deceased. So crudely speaking, a deceased estate claim is a primary claimant that has passed on. A primary claimant that has passed on. Same eligibility criteria, same prerequisite for entitlement. The primary claimant, the close family member that can make the application. Close family members that can make the application are as follows. Wife or husband of the deceased individual or the primary claimant. Parent, the mother and father. Siblings, that's brothers and sisters. Children, that's sons and daughters. And fifthly, anyone that has lived with the primary claimant or the deceased individual for more than 2 years while they were going to the struggles, and that individual was legally in the UK, had a right to be in the UK. And all those close family members that I mentioned before, from wife or husband, parent, children, siblings, they were legally in the UK, or they've got a right to be in the UK. You know, some of them may have been here when that individual was going through the struggle, and they are now outside the UK. They can still make the claim despite the fact they're outside the UK. Okay. The close family member would make the claim because due to the fact of how their lives were impacted while the primary claimant or the deceased individual was going through the struggle, how you were impacted as a primary claimant emotionally, the stress that you went through, etc., etc. You do not necessarily need to have supported the primary claimant financially, etc., etc. You may not be able to, may not have been able to support that primary claimant or that deceased individual. You may not have had the resources. However, that impacted you emotionally, etc. It still impacted your life, so to speak. The close family member can also make claim for living expenses. As of the 22nd of August, as of the 22nd of August, 2022, the close family members can also claim for living expenses. Those are monies that is spent on the primary claimant or the deceased individual while they're going through the struggle. To buy phone card, food, etc., etc. They may have been stuck abroad. You have to pay for the plane fare to get them back to the UK or send them money, etc., etc. Or they may have moved into you to live with you. Sofa surfing, living on your please mute that for me, Garrick. Please mute your camera. If you're not speaking, please mute, and please take your camera off, please. Please get rid of your camera, please. Just audio, please. If you're not up and speaking, then get rid of your camera. Garrick, can you get that gentleman's camera, please? Mute him, please. Please identify him, Garrick, and ask him to get his camera off, please. So, yes, you can claim for living expenses as a close family member. When you claim for living expenses, you need to have some sort of evidence, whether it be in a bank statement, any sort of receipt, etc., etc. So you need to evidence it. Now, if the individuals moved in and were living with you and you had letters coming to the said address, the individuals had a letter coming to you that moved in with you, the primary claimant or the deceased individual, that should be evidence good enough that they were living with you and you could claim for the living expenses, the gas bill, etc., etc., went up. They may need to go into a bit more further details. What was the gas bill prior to the individual moving in? What's the gas bill now? Or the utility bill, etc., etc. Sir, please take your camera off. The gentleman with the black and white linen, please take your camera off. Gary, can you hear me?
Yes, I've just sent a message to him. Yeah.
Yes, please tell him by audio. Please tell him to get his camera off. Please do not put your camera on.
Mr. Malcolm, can you turn your camera off, please?
I think he's off now. You ask him to turn his camera.
Just the audio. Just turn your camera off, because it's being recorded.
So I'm just gonna give you some quick indicators of how you can approach close family members' claim. There is not a limited amount of close family member application that can be submitted. So let's give you a scenario. Gentleman came from Nigeria, from a Commonwealth country in the 70s, came with his parents, etc., etc. At some point, he had issues and he passed away after having issues for 5, 6 years or whatever. He was married, had children. He passed away, let's say 2, 3 years ago, okay? He's got 5 children, he got 5 brothers and sisters. mother and father is still alive. Deceased estate application was submitted, an offer was made. At the point that offer was made, that should trigger the close family member claim. Even if they've only offered 10,000, that's when you should get active, start having that family discussion as to what this individual experienced, etc., and all your life, all your siblings' life and children's life, that the children of the deceased individual life was impacted. So the 5 children can make a close family member claim due to how the life was impacted. The 5 siblings can also make a claim due to how the life was impacted. Also, the mother and father of that deceased individual can also make a claim for make a close family member claim due to how their lives were impacted emotionally, etc., assuming that they were in the UK legally at the time or for a number of years. Even if they're now outside the UK, they were in the UK legally at the time, lawfully at the time, while that individual life was impacted. That individual was married, and due to the issues that he was going through, they're divorced, say, a couple of years prior to that individual passing away. That individual got involved in another relationship. So the wife can claim, or his ex-wife, his former wife, can make a claim. Likewise, the individual he got in the second relationship, so to speak, she can also make a claim. So there we're talking about 5 children, 5 siblings, mother, father, etc., wife, former wife, and also former partner. I make the point to establish that a number of individuals can make a close family member claim once it's established that they're eligible. I always say this: if you are a close family member, primary claimant as well, because we've come across quite a number of primary claimants that have had an offer and they have not shared with their close family member, that they too can make a claim. If you are a family member, especially when it's a deceased estate, please do not be gatekeeping. Please share the information out there among your siblings, among the other close family members. I know in most families, if not all, there are family issues. But at this time, you need to be sharing information, because one child may have information about a particular individual, whether it's been the father, went to Ghana, had issues returning, etc., that family member that went to pick up the individual in the car, he would share information with that individual, what he experienced in Ghana and at the airport, etc., He may have been detained at the airport for 3-4 hours, whatever. When we say detained, it does not necessarily mean that you were taken in a room and locked up and cannot move around, etc. If your documentation was taken, a passport, and they were calling around, making inquiries, questioning your citizenship, your right to be in the UK, etc., that is detained. You could not move about, could not leave the airport without your documentation. So that is detained, right? Share information, have the discussion. So the approach I usually suggest is get the story, and I use the term story loosely. What happened? Okay, have the discussion as to what happened. Then you start gathering the evidence. We're talking paperwork now, okay, or emails, etc. You can be as creative as you want, tell whatever story you want, but you need to evidence that. Right? That's a creative. I don't necessarily mean that you're lying, okay? A lot of times you may have issues getting the documentation. They may say, can you prove that this individual was here before 1973? You may have challenges getting those documentation, those proof, those evidence. However, there are ways of going about it, especially for those that worked in the UK for a period of time. Even if they're not eligible or entitled to pension, in some cases, you can get the documentation, the evidence from them, okay? I have got my approach. Tanika will have her approach, and others have got their approach of getting the evidence. Not guarantee anything. However, there are ways to get those evidence to evidence whatever statement that you have submitted. But I encourage as many close family member applications as possible. What we find in a number of cases that when the close family member claims are being submitted, and a number of occasions, the Windrush compensation team said, based on your experience as a close family member, you too are eligible to make a primary claim. And you can make a primary, you can submit more than one claim. I've come across cases where one individual has got two close family member claim because the mother and father may have passed and their lives impacted, etc., and that the estate is eligible and entitled to compensation. So you make a claim, the individual, the daughter, whatever, you make a claim against the mother, deceased mother, and also one against the deceased father. And that daughter or son may also have a primary claim in their own right. And the scenario that I mentioned to you earlier on, 5 children, 5 siblings, etc., needless to say, obviously that will trigger another set of close family member claims as well. Okay, get those close family member claims in, have the discussion with your sibling. And if you are born in the UK and your parent or grandparent came from a Commonwealth country, please do not be saying it does not apply to me because I have got a passport. We have got cases where individuals were born in the UK, had issues, were told to go get a Nigerian passport, go get a Jamaican passport for whatever reason, and then they subsequently get a British passport at a later date after the issues have been sorted out. Garrick, I'm going to hand back to you at this point. If there are any further questions, I'm here, elaboration, etc.,
Thank you.
Needed, I am here as well. Thanks,
Thank you very much for that, Roland. So that's about close family claim. I'm just going to make a couple of additional points to what Roland just said. And firstly, just to say that the money that is paid for close family claim does not affect the primary claimant or the deceased claim. It's not coming from that pot, so that, you know, don't be thinking that that person's money will be reduced. It totally will not have any impact on primary claimant or deceased claim as a close family claim. The other point I'd like to make, children under the age of 18 can make a claim on the close family, but the claim will have to be submitted by another person. So it says, if you're under the age of 18 and making a claim, you will need a parent, a guardian, or someone with parental responsibility to send the claim in on your behalf if you're under the age of 18. And that would be Annex A in the close family guidance. Okay. Now, we've given you information on primary claimant. We've given you information on close family claim. And Roland also mentioned no difference between the deceased and the primary claimant. On each of these claims, we strongly encourage you to read the guidance. So there is guidance for the primary claimant. There are guidance for close family claim, and there are guidance for deceased claim, right? Read those carefully and read them over and over to understand before you start writing and filling in your application. And the other thing that worth mentioning, that's just to remind you what we said about significant loss, how you've been impacted. But this is one of the key elements in your claim, a substantial part of your claim. I'm just going to read out a list of areas that would have applied that you've been impacted on. It's not a definitive list, but it will help you to understand what is meant by you suffer loss. So the first one, again, this is coming directly from the guidance. You suffer loss from employment, immigration fee, housing, health, education, driving license, banking, daily life. For example, you miss major family event that you could not travel. You've been detained or removed. Living costs, for example, rent, utilities, contribution towards food, household essential, travel, and prescription fees. That is just some example of loss. So if any of those apply to you, then that will help you in formulating and putting your claim as to what you have lost. Let me just read them again. Employment, immigration fees, housing, health, education, driving license, banking, daily life, you miss out on family event, you could not travel, your son or daughter was graduating, you could not get to the graduation. We've had that experience of individual. Roland mentioned you were detained at the airport for more than 35 minutes being questioned, and before you were eventually let through. Again, that is mentioned, you can claim, providing it exceed 30 minutes. Living costs, for example, rent, utilities, contribution towards food, household essential, travel, and prescription. So that will help you to think about, yes, this happened to me. This happened to me. This happened to me. This happened to my son. This happened to me. So it will help you to just formulate how you respond to your losses. Let me just say something about trauma and mental health. And it is clear that many of our community who have suffered loss has experienced traumatic experiences over a long period of time. So when you're making your claim, don't forget to include this. And the best way to approach this, you don't have to pay for any special report from your GP that will cost you 25 or 35 pounds. No, all you need to do is to go to your GP and get a patient record of you. Yes, and that is enough to let the Home Office people know that you're on this medication for depression, anxiety, you're on this medication as a result of type 2 diabetes, whatever it may be, but the patient's record will have sufficient information, right, about you. And if you have spent time in a hospital, a mental health hospital for treatment for anything like 3 months, 6 months, etc., you've been treated for a particular mental health condition, again, you need that evidence. Yeah. So this is what has impacted on your life, right? This massive change has impacted on your life. We know individual who, 2 of their children has ended up in a mental institution as a result of what has happened to the family. And, there are many cases like that out there. Roland? Roland, you got your hand up?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can is 3:30 now. Can we invite some questions now? There are some questions in the
Yes,
chat.
I'm concluding this final bit now.
Yeah,
Yes.
please.
Yeah. So, as I said, don't be thinking you have to pay for, any special report. just go to your doctor and get the patient summary. We'll have your information, what medication you're on, etc. Any reference that you've been referred to hospital, to a consultant, that information is there. You don't have to pay for that. You can get that free. The reception will give you that. You don't even have to see the doctor, right? The receptionist at the doctor surgery will give that to you. Just tell them what you want. They'll give it to you. They're free of charge, no charge. So we've covered eligibility. We've covered primary claimant, the individual making the claim. We've covered close family claim. And Roland has mentioned there's no fixed number to that. So it could be anything from 10 to 20, no fixed number. We also mentioned the deceased, and is no different to the primary claimant. And I mentioned also that if you're under the age of 18, you can still submit a claim, but somebody have got to do that for yourself. You can't do it on your own. So either your parents or guardian or somebody will have to submit that claim on your behalf. Okay. And we know there are many young carers who've been helping and caring for other family members. So just think about that. So now it's the opportunity for us to hear your view, anything that we have mentioned that need any clarification, any question that you want to raise, then we're here to answer those questions. So a couple of things just to make us think about. When we have these sessions, what we hope the outcome is that a person would think, yes, I can make an application and I will go off and do this or seek help to make an application. We also want to know if there are any application bids submitted to the Home Office in the last 6 months or so, because we also want to understand the timeline, how the Home Office is responding and processing your application. For the moment you send your application in, do you get an acknowledgement that it's been received? And then if you did get an acknowledgement 6 months ago, a year ago, what has happened since? How long is the application taking to be processed before you get an offer? All this information is helpful for us because it helps us to actually challenge the Home Office and to their policy and processes and practice, etc. So this information is useful for us. So it is your time now to tell us any question has come out of any of the areas that we have spoken about thus far. You can use your physical hand, or you can use the reaction at the bottom of your screen on the Zoom. Any question in the chat, Tanika, that we haven't addressed? Is that a legacy, and Roland?
There's a question there regarding a deceased estate and close family member claim. I think we should explain what that is, and it'd be good if the individual I think it's iPhone. If you come up and ask a question, please do not give your name or anything like that. Just speak in generality. I think she's saying that an application is submitted and deceased estate application was submitted, and the Home Office is they're treating it as one. But please come and mic. Please keep your camera off. Come and mic and just elaborate that we can get a general idea as to what was submitted, how it was submitted, etc.
Is that iPhone 3? Or is it?
Yeah, iPhone 3, yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah. Hi, my name's Janet. I actually put that question. Myself and my sister put in a claim. My sister put in a claim for my mom, and I put in a claim for my dad. We've been messed about. It's been going on for 1 year. We've been told different caseworkers, advisors, they've told us my sister has to claim for both parents. I can't claim. Then they came back to me and they said, no, you've got to do your dad's and your sister's got to do your mom. Then they've come back to us this week to say, I can't claim. My sister has to claim. She's the one that's going to be getting the grant.
Right. Okay.
Can I address
Roland,
that, Gary? Right.
Roland,
Okay.
what that question. So I'm gonna invite Tanika to just give a couple of comments on this, and then we can sort of widen it out. Okay, I see something from Tanika. Can you give any comments on this as to, you know, are we got enough information, or should we actually follow this up offline? Roland, go ahead while
Right. I'll answer that question in general. I think I generally get the gist of what she's saying. Okay. I'll ask one quick question though. Is your parents still alive? So give me a yes or a no on that, please.
No, they're both deceased.
That's it. No, we don't want any further information, please. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Okay. In that case, talking to deceased estate claim, I did touch on this earlier on. So, if a family member is appointed, after it goes through probate and so on, there's a process, and we can have a discussion about probate separately. So, an appointed individual, I say, family have a discussion and said, you're gonna submit the deceased estate application. What it can be one family member for the father, another family member for the mother. But it needs to that authority, so to speak, needs to be established. And then in that case, it would have to go through probate if there is no will, so to speak. Okay. Now, in terms of the close family member claims, once the deceased estate claims are submitted, close family member claims can be submitted. But it needs to be established who has got the right to support to submit these claims, and that will be determined by whether there's a will, and if there is no will, it would have to go through probate. Now, in terms of going through probate, because there are documentations to be established, you need to get, etc., etc., that the Home Office will pay up to £1,500. In a number of cases, individual pass away abroad and so on. So up to £1,500, the Home Office will pay. Well, the scheme will pay for each deceased estate claim to establish probate, for probate, to establish who has got the right to submit that claim. Because you may be a daughter or next of kin, etc., but that needs to be established with the Home Office that you've got the scheme that you've got the right to do that. Okay. Does that answer the question?
Well, they've already made the decision because my sister's older than me, so they've made the decision that this week that my sister, the grant will go to my sister, and they're going to close my dad's application.
Okay, let's not go into any further details with this. What I would suggest you do is make contact with Tanika or myself, and we discuss in further details. Okay? Well, not because they have already made a decision, it does not mean it's the right decision.
Okay, thank you very much. I will do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Roland. And
the reason I answer it in generality like that, because I know there are others out there, and the deceased estate claims are one of those, like the close family member claims. There are quite a number that should have been submitted and aren't being submitted. We need to get a lot more of these deceased estate claims submitted. But there's a bit of a misunderstanding out there. But we are here, engage with us, make contact. In a lot of cases, we make contact with people that come to to these Zooms, and they say they can't be bothered because it's too difficult, it's too complicated. Yes, it's complicated to an extent, but we are here to make what's difficult a lot easier. So make contact. The telephone numbers are there. Give us a call, email us, and then we will discuss in detail and establish what needs to be done or what can be done. Because we can't go into details here. You know, you're gonna give out your personal details, etc., etc. Once you make contact, we go into that details and the intricacy of your particular claim, your particular individual or family situation. That is why what we're here for. That's what we do. Gary, back to you, please.
Yes, and again, just to let everybody know, the support for application is via Liverpool Advocates for Windrush .org, Liverpool Advocates for Windrush.org. And you'll find telephone number, email address where you can contact us directly. You can also contact us via the other website, which is Justice for Windrush Generations with the S, Justice for Windrush Generations.co.uk. There you will find a telephone number, WhatsApp number, email address, right? So you've got two websites that you need to make a note of for any additional help and support after we leave this call today. So any cases that need help, please, make that your priority to seek out that help via those two websites I've given you. And you've got telephone numbers there on those sites and email address. So there are no excuse not to contact the relevant advocate for any additional help. We don't want to discuss individual cases on this platform, but we want to signpost you where you can get the help and support after the end of this call or tomorrow. So please reach out to that. Lancet, can I take your question, please?
Yeah, no, the question is, after this, like being on the panel for the first time, just seeing how things are operating, it's like it's definitely difficult, and I find that there could be a more better way, or a more sufficient way without, because there's a lot of things that's mentioned, like traumas, because a case that's going on for at least a year, the traumas that people have to go through, it's by the time anyone receive anything, the impact could be loss of life. There could be a lot of things that taken place, and I feel like because it's already been, they already accept wrong. Why couldn't we look into that? There could be more wrongs that is being done based through the way that the application is being processed. So it could be, so the process could be even more quicker and more easier on those that don't even that is not even have the capacity to even understand what the panel through these 2 hours have said. There's a lot of people that
I'm hearing what you're saying, and let me just say this to reassure. The current Windrush Home Office compensation scheme, we've been challenging this scheme right from the outset, and we're not happy with the scheme, the process, the policy and the practice of the Home Office. We've been challenging it ever since the scheme was established. And we've been seeking changes to the scheme. And, it's quite clear that the scheme need to be improved and need to be better. The whole process of the way the scheme is designed, the application process and so forth, it's quite difficult. Now, this might be helpful to you. On the 27th of January, in a couple of weeks' time in Brixton, we have members of the Home Office engagement team present. And we also have present the independent advisor to the Windrush compensation scheme, Professor Martin Livermore, will be present. That will be a panel discussion with the Home Office and community. And this is where an issue like what you've just said need to be raised. We've been raising these issues ourselves, but it's good for other people to raise these issues. So the 27th, make a note, please. The 27th of January, it's a Saturday afternoon, starting at 5:15 p.m., Brixton Seventh-day Adventist Church. And that event will focus on issues around this scheme. And clearly what you've just said, the scheme need, it need to be improved. And the way the scheme is designed, it is not easy for people to access and make application. But we need more people to be saying these things. We've been saying it ourselves. We need more people to be saying it. And if you can come to that event, right, and raise this point and say, then that will be very helpful, because the Home Office team will be there, so they can take this back to HQ and try to get some improvement. We've been challenging this scheme right from the outset to get your teams change and to get improvement. And most of the improvement that has happened has been a result of us challenging it over the last few years to get improvement. But it's still not right. And we want a better scheme, but we still have to work with what we have at the moment. And that is why I said the advocates are there to help and assist individual, to give them that support, that additional support to help them with their application. 27th of January, Brixton Seventh-day Adventist Church. Please make a note. This is also being promoted on the Eventbrite platform. It's out in social media. It's on our website. It's out there in the public domain. And we want, people to attend in person. It will also be in hybrid. But in person is great because you can actually, speak directly to the Home Office team and raise these issues. So thanks for that, Lancet. Any more questions, please, on anything that we have spoken about? Any clarification?
Gary, can I just clarify something there, please?
Go ahead.
Right, regarding the event at the Seventh-day Adventist Church on the 27th of this month, 5:15 to 8:15 p.m. And the day is specifically about the scheme as it is. That event is about is to promote the scheme, how to apply to the scheme, etc. On the day, we won't particularly will be discussing the failings of the scheme. So if they've got issues with the scheme, on that day is not the day to raise those issues. Any issues with the scheme should be raised at the House of Commons. That's when we will be discussing the necessary changes. So let me be clear on that. On that day, we will focus on the scheme as is, the different elements, the different categories, how to apply, returning resident visa, etc., etc. The work that Professor Livermore did in Jamaica about advertising the scheme and so on. So that will not be the space regarding the issues with the scheme. That day is the scheme as is, how to apply to it, the changes that were made recently, and the impact, i.e. the change regard on the 29th of December, how it will impact your pension, change that was made on the 27th of October 23 last year. How will that impact those that were born in the UK? Because prior to that date, there are individuals that were born in the UK and for whatever reason grew up outside the UK. Prior to the 24th of October, they were not eligible to apply to the scheme. The change that was made on the 22nd of August 2022 regarding close family members and homelessness. Those are the things that we will be discussing on the day. So that's in terms of questions, so to speak. Professor Livermore, Jackie McKenzie should be there. Professor Patrick Vernon will be there. And the Home Office engagement team will be there as well. So want to apply to the scheme, that's the day. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thanks for that. But also, Lancia, if you can drop us an email with what you've said, again, we can actually put that forward on your behalf. We know there are many people concerned about the current scheme. The event that Roland just mentioned.
Just a quick one, Gary, please. If you're from outside the UK, you can't attend in person on the day. You can access it via Zoom and YouTube. If you're gonna access it via Zoom or YouTube, please do not book a ticket. You do not need to book any ticket. If you're gonna attend in person, then you can book a free ticket for that. We know the numbers. That's the whole idea of these tickets. Okay. Zoom, no ticket. Just attend. Just click the link. Same link as today. You used to attend on the day for the 27th. Same link on the day for the 24th when we're in the House of Commons. And wherever you are in the world, if you can engage, you can interact, ask questions, etc., etc. Okay? Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for that, Roland. Tanika?
Thanks, Garrett. Roland, on YouTube, where's the link, or how do you access it on YouTube?
The link will be circulated on the day. If you want to, however, all our events are on Eventbrite. So for the House of Commons, if you search the Windrush Manifesto Rally, that would come up somewhere close to the top, and in Google, go to Eventbrite, and the link will be there. Also on the day, once the meeting starts, we will circulate the YouTube link. The Zoom link is the same. We'll put the Zoom link, the YouTube link on the Eventbrite once it started. Also, if you watch your space, the social media space, the YouTube link will start circulated in the next few days or so. But starting point really is Eventbrite. Always head to Eventbrite, because we regularly do updates there for the links, YouTube, etc., etc. My telephone number is here as well. I dropped my telephone number in the chat now. Yeah, so you can call me, circulate the number. Anyone has got any issues joining and making contact, can give me a call, WhatsApp me or whatever, and I will do the necessary. Okay? I'm going to put my email there as well. I am on WhatsApp. I'm on Signal as well, and Skype if you search my name. Okay, back to you, Gary.
Thank you. Just another point I need to raise just before we're finishing around 4 o'clock. But we know that there are many people outside the UK that haven't got access to all the information, and so we try to reach out to people. We have got contact in a number of different countries that we share information directly, so that information is also shared in different parts of Africa, Canada, United States, and Caribbean. But one of the most important thing is knowing how to reach us. So we've given you a website, 2 websites. It's important to note those 2 websites, because you can share this information with people and family outside the UK. So LiverpoolAdvocatesForWindrush.org is about advocacy, helping you with the application and helping you to submit an application. The justiceforwindrushgeneration.co.uk, that's our campaigning organization that we're reaching out to get more people coming forward and making a claim. So what we're trying to do is to get that information globally as far as we can, to get more people to know about Windrush and how to make a claim. Now, the WhatsApp number in both of those websites are important for you to note, because that's the way you can get to the individual via the WhatsApp number. Providing they have access to the internet, you get free call. Yeah. But there's another way that people from outside can connect with the Home Office. And I'm going to ask Roland to tell us about Skype, how they can connect with the Home Office from outside the UK. Roland?
All right. This is a Sunday chat, and we try to speak as frank and honest as possible. But I give out the number. However, a lot of times when you call the 0800 number, competency is an issue there. Information is being given sometimes is misleading as far as I'm concerned. You ask straightforward, direct questions that they should know the answer to. And in a lot of cases, you may be given misleading information, which will deter you from applying to the scheme. The telephone number, which you can call in Skype if you're calling from outside the UK. So any computer, desktop, smartphone, if you've got Skype on it, you go to the country that you would like to call. There are a list of countries there, USA, UK, etc. If you go to the list of countries, choose the UK, that will stimulate you being in the UK. So virtually, you will be in the UK. You dial the following number, 0800 678 1925. 0800 678 1925. Use Skype to call the 0800 number. It's advertised as free. However, if you're calling from outside the UK, then there's a charge. Up to just over a year ago, the Home Office did not seem to know that. It seemed to under the impression that you can call, if you're in Nigeria, wherever, you can call that number free. In terms of the contacts that we've got outside the UK, individuals on the ground that you can make that initial contact with, and in a lot of cases, these are individuals who have got lived experience in terms of what they've experienced due to hostile environment, and in some cases of applying to the scheme. Got contacts in Rwanda, Ethiopia, Ghana, Nigeria, Jamaica, and Barbados. Okay. So if you want someone, we strongly believe in cultural sensitivity. And I'm talking to my Jamaican sister and brethren, sometimes I just talk in patois. Likewise, if you're Nigerian, so on, it's good if we can have that discussion with someone on the ground. So we're trying to say we try to reduce the excuses of you not applying to the scheme. Engage. Gary, back to you, please.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So Roland is giving you a Skype number so that there will be no charge for you using that service through Skype. You end up with a free call rather than paying for a call, providing that you've got access to the internet. So there are no excuse for actually making contact to either the Home Office team or to us, Justice for Windrush, or to the advocates. Yeah, both WhatsApp numbers are there, email address are there for communication. Please share that information to friends and family, whether they're in the UK or outside the UK. Share that information. That is where you can get help with the compensation scheme if you don't understand what to do, or you may need help in making the application directly. Lancet, you've got your hand up. Is that a legacy hand or is it a new hand?
Just quickly, Garrett, before you go to Lancet. I'm going to post a number of links on here for the House of Commons, as well as the 27th at the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I'll be posting some info there. Please share. A number of people have asked for it. Give me about a minute or so, and it should be in the chat. Thank you.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, Lancet, please. Yeah, your point.
No, it was previous before.
Oh, it's a legacy hand. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so let me just give a quick overview summary. So we've been on the chat now for 2 hours, and we started off with the introduction to the Windrush compensation scheme. we checked out who's eligible. We've given you, eligibility criteria from a Commonwealth country and from the rest of the world. You need to arrive in the UK settled by 1973 from a Commonwealth country. And then for other country, the rest of the world, you need to be in the UK settled by the 31st of December 1988. We also talk around, primary claimant, and we spoke around close family application. We also spoke about deceased estate, which is exactly the same as the primary claimant. Only difference is that they have passed, but they were eligible to make a claim. So it's no different. We also spoke about this point around loss. You being impacted, what loss have you suffered? And I gave you a list of losses from employment all the way down to supporting individual utility, etc. And all the information that we've discussed today can be found on the .gov.uk/Windrush compensation scheme. And then you have a choice of different topic as you hit that Windrush compensation scheme. Yeah, you will see various topic that will help you. And again, we've made strong reference to the guidance of each of these application, guidance for primary claimant, guidance for close family, and guidance for deceased estate. And it's important to read the guidance, get help if you're not able to read the guidance on your own. But the guidance is important before you begin to make an application, begin to write anything on paper. I also suggest that you do a draft on a separate blank piece of paper, do a draft of the question and answers before you transfer that to the final application that will go off to the Home Office. And I mentioned also that it's important that you have your personal details correct, your full name as it is written on your birth certificate. Any other name, there's a place for that to be recorded. And if you do not copy it exactly how it is spelled, then that could be a separate person's application. The Home Office will view it. That is not you. Okay, so it's important that everything should be correct. And before you send application off, get somebody to have a look at it, right? Either somebody who has done an application before, a friend, or one of our advocates that can help you to make sure that application covers what has happened to you. And so you will get the maximum award from that application. So that has brought us to the end of our session.
Quick one, Gary, please, before I end. Okay, I've just posted the link there. What I'm going to ask each and everyone here to do, I'm going to ask you to grant me a favor. And both links, the one for the 27th, Brixton Seventh-day Adventist Church, and the one on the 24th, those two links, I'm going to ask you to just click on them. We can do it now if you can, please. You can do it later. I would appreciate you doing it now. You don't have to book your ticket now. All I'm asking you to do, just click on those links, okay? Right, click the first one, click the second one, and it will take you to the website. You don't have to book any ticket or do anything else. Please just do that one click on both of those for me, please. I would really appreciate that, okay?
That's great, thank you. And so once you click on that, you again have it on your machine, your computer, your tablet, your phone, etc. It's there. Just to remind people that our Sunday chat operates second and last Sunday of each month. And our Q&A, which is direct questions to our Liverpool advocate team, operates on the first Sunday and the third Sunday of the month. Again, if you visit the Liverpool Advocate website, you will see that information. You will also see the time it starts at 3 p.m. till 5 p.m. And you will see a questionnaire on site, because we need people to complete the questionnaire to tell us what is some of the barriers they're experiencing. We want more people to come forward and make application, but we know there are many individuals experiencing different barriers to accessing and getting the information. And we make a special appeal to anyone that is African and have any African friends and family, because Africans do not understand Windrush or know that Windrush applies to them. They think it's a Caribbean issue because they see Jamaicans coming off the Windrush ship. We tell people Windrush is global, affecting people from 65 countries. So please share that information with friends and family, whether they're from Asia, or they're from India, Bangladesh, whatever. Let them know Windrush applies to them also. And just finally, before I go, let me just give you some numbers. So the Home Office give us quarterly report and the number of people who've made application. So Jamaica, there's been 3,485 application from Jamaica. Caribbean, 2,123. Pakistan, 197. India, 2,456. Bangladesh, 160. Ghana, 164. Nigeria, 472. EU, 4,809. And EU, that's for rectifying their status after Brexit. The rest of the world, 2,846, giving a grand total so far of 16,709 people who has come forward and have used the Windrush scheme. We want to see that figure double, quadruple, right? We estimated there's still 40,000 people that hasn't come forward. So please spread the word, let people know that this scheme is global. Get in touch with either of the organization I mentioned, Liverpool Advocates for Windrush.org or justiceforwindrushgenerations.co.uk. That is where more information, and you can share that information with friends and family. It tells you who is eligible for the scheme. It gives you more additional information. It also has signposts to different organizations, legal organizations that we work with, should in case your query is outside of Windrush that require immigration. We've got information on the both sides to help individuals. So thank you very much for attending. Please keep in touch and share the information that you've learned this afternoon with other people. And we want to see more application being submitted to the Home Office. Thank you very much.
If you're still on, please remember to click, please. Click on those blue links, please. Thank you.